In the Victorian era, Britain changed as never before. It was the time of great inventors, great engineers, but above all, great businessmen, entrepreneurs. And one of the best examples was the pioneer photographer, Francis Frith. It was in the 1860s that Francis Frith embarked upon a monumental mission using the newly invented photographic camera. He wanted to document every city, every town, and every village in the land. I'm tracing the footsteps of this remarkable man and his team of photographers. Using their pictures as my guide, I'll be travelling the length and breadth of the country, finding out what has altered and what has stayed the same. And along the way, I'll be taking my own photos to try and capture the mood of the place as it is now. That's great. Welcome to Britain's first photo album. Francis Frith and his team of Victorian photographers roamed the country looking for interesting sights and taking photos they hoped would sell. Choose any region, the chances are Frith has been there before. On this part of my tour, I'm going to Gloucestershire and parts of Wales. Am I trying to outdo Frith? No, I'm trying to keep up. Using Frith's photos as my guide, I travel today to the picturesque waterways of South Wales and across the border to Gloucestershire. I'll be heading into the depths of the magical Forest of Dean to have a go at the strange business of ochre mining. Well, this is something, isn't it? This is a magnificent cave. I'll be finding out about the founder of the Sunday School movement and learning what the present-day children of Gloucester think about it. And would you like to go to Sunday school?
No, not really.
And as usual, I'll be creating my own photographic record along the way in the spirit of Francis Frith. And hold that, that's great. Yeah, there we go. I'm beginning my travels just outside Newport. It's an area steeped in a rich industrial history and up until the early 20th century was a vital transport hub for the South Wales mining industry. Coal was shipped from here by canal and by river to the rest of Britain. In the 18th century, most of the roads were no more than tracks. It was difficult to move goods, particularly heavy goods. And the practical answer remains one of the glories of our country, the canal system. The builders were so ambitious and ingenious, they managed to make water go up hills. Britain's canals and their ingenious locks were a miraculous feat of engineering, and my first Frith photo is of a place known as 14 Locks, part of what was once the Monmouthshire Canal. In the 18th century, canals in Britain became the transport network that allowed the Industrial Revolution to flourish, shifting heavy goods over long distances. At their peak, nearly 4,500 miles of canals crisscrossed the country. But with the advent of the railways, canals fell into disrepair. They collapsed, silted up, and were forgotten. But in the last decade, the fortunes of 14 Locks has changed, thanks to the determination of the Canal Trust and Newport Council, spurred on by local historian Phil Hughes.
Well, here we are. This is the exact spot this photograph was taken in about 1895.
And what are we looking at?
You're looking at the bottom of the 14-lock flight, a unique structure. It rose 169 feet in half a mile to take boats uphill.
Now we can see 1, 2, 3 locks, but yes, it goes on and on, doesn't it?
Absolutely, to the top of the hill.
What are we looking at here? There are some people?
There are some people here. This is lock 7. As you can see, it was fully operational in those days. Lock gates are on, boats were still working, and boats were working here till probably 1933, 1935.
It was all flourishing,
oh, absolutely. Yes, yes.
It wasn't a mess like this?
Oh, no, 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 totally clear.
So what's unique about this design?
Well, it was designed in this way to save water. Water was paramount. Every time you opened a lock, theoretically, you lost about 52,000 gallons of water.
So this is designed to make sure that when the boats come through, you're losing hardly any water?
Absolutely, because the water would then spill into the ponds each side of the locks. The theory is that when you opened the top lock at 14 locks, you only ever lost 1 lock full of water by the time you got to the bottom.
But people think it always rains in Wales.
Well, they were always short of water. They were short of water in the summer because of droughts, and they froze in the winters, and this is why when the railways came, they shut the canals down, really.
When the Frith photographers took these shots in the 1890s, canals in Britain were already in rapid decline. Even back then, they were a record of a passing way of life. By the start of the 20th century, only a few working canals remained. But in more recent years, groups of enthusiasts have gradually started to return many of Britain's canals to their former glory. They're part of the leisure industry. The monumental task of restoring Newport's 14 locks began a decade ago. So what do we see here? What's the significance of this bit?
Well, this is the bit that's yet to be restored.
Yes.
This is our next project, and when you look at this side, this is the first of the 5 locks that we've actually restored.
Oh, and it looks terrific. And how much has that cost? How much have you spent?
Not far short of £1 million.
£1 million?
Near enough, yes.
You've got a lot to go.
You've got to say it very quickly.
As I say it quickly, exactly. I wonder what the canal folk in the Frith photo might have thought of Phil and the Canal Trust's efforts to restore these old waterways. We don't know who they were, but we do know that the lock keeper when this picture was taken was called Henry Bailey. He worked here nearly all of his life before retiring in 1922. His granddaughter Mary still lives locally, and she's made a study of how their lives were lived. So when we look at this picture, we can't see your grandfather.
No. I have a picture of him.
Oh, that's nice.
Taken just after that time.
So just after this photograph was taken.
That's right.
We can't see him in the picture.
No. He would have known those people because it was his job to be walking up and down the canal bank here, yes.
Yeah.
And checking everything was in order.
So that's a direct link between
It
you
is,
and
certainly.
What impression do you get of what life was like on the canal?
It was a very close community, rural community.
And nice from that point of view.
Very good, yes.
We've lost that, haven't we, really?
Certainly, yeah.
After 100 years of neglect, the canal is at last starting to come back to life. So I've decided to take a picture of Mary, the granddaughter of one of the last lock keepers. She's a direct link between the past and the present. That's great. And hold that. That's great. There we go. And there's Mary, by the locks that could so easily have been buried and ignored. I couldn't take the picture in the same way that the Frith photographer did, because that, of course, is now all overgrown, but I did think that Mary was, well, she was so good, and what a direct connection. Her grandfather in charge of the lock system when the photograph was taken. And just think how exciting it is for her to have these locks being restored. She never thought that would happen. And it's just a sort of, I don't know, it's a picture of the future, isn't it? For canals to live again, they need barges, and the Canal Trust has rescued an old one with the intention of returning it to the waterway. It's a project which has inspired the local community. Tom Maloney is one of the key figures. Hello, Tom.
Hello, John.
This is a great project. So what are you hoping this will look like when you've finished?
Well, what you see now should have a nice floor on it.
Yes, quite.
And we'll have benches each side so that when we have particularly the children on board, when they look out, they're seeing a real magical experience. Any child who comes on board this boat is going to be having a dream ride. It's going to be fantastic.
What is it about, well, about canal boats and canals that get people? What is it?
I think it's just something inside you, John. You know, you have a love of water, and I think that goes back a very long time. They are fabulous, and they are part of our wonderful landscape, and we don't want them to go.
For my next Frith picture, I'm staying in Monmouthshire, heading into the centre of Newport. These parts of Wales are now so modern, some of them, but we're, of course, driving into the past, as we usually are. And there's a very interesting story here in Newport. The Frith photograph tells the story of another mode of transport popular in the Victorian era. Horse-drawn trams came to Newport at the end of the 19th century. They proved a great success and were soon updated. An electric tram network continued right up until 1937. Their day passed when they became too expensive to operate and less versatile than the new double-decker buses. Our Frith picture was taken on Commercial Street, which runs through the centre of Newport, and you can see the horse-drawn tram en route with its very proper Victorian passengers perched on the top. Local tram enthusiast Dave Thomas has a collection of other tram photographs, and he's brought along a few of them to show me.
Now this marks the end of an era. It shows the last tram to operate in Newport, leaving Westgate Centre at 11 o'clock at night. It was packed with passengers and proceeded along Corporation Road to the depot.
And what date was that?
September the 6th, 1937.
So this is just before the war. I mean, that's also gives it a rather sad tinge to it, doesn't it?
That's true.
Because people are jolly, but in 2 years' time we will be at war.
That's right. There was a great deal of affection in Newport for the trams, and as you can see by the crowd who gathered to say goodbye. They all ended up at a breaker's yard on the riverbank in Newport and were very quickly scrapped.
So this is the graveyard of the trams?
Indeed, yes. And all that remains is an inside door from one of them, which I have in my garage at home.
Something good has come out of the tram graveyard. Electric trams came to many British cities in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. A track was laid on the seafront in Brighton, creating a sensation at the time and attracting hordes of visitors to the town. That was in 1883, and it's still running today, the oldest in the world. But the age of the tram in Newport was quickly over. The trams have gone, but the love affair is still lingering on in, of all places, the City Museum, suitably modern. There are, in here, echoes of the past. We've got models of trams, at least, and I've got to wear special gloves because these are valuable. Isn't it nice? Built by a local enthusiast. And these are the regulations for the conductors. Now, some of them were lady conductors, some of them were men, but they had all sorts of tasks. And this is the one I like. This is very strict instruction about keep cars tidy. Conductors must keep cars clear of paper and used tickets. But then there's a very valuable warning. This should be done when cars are stationary at the terminus. Quite right. The noisy bustle of Victorian streets is long gone, with all the horses that went with it. Our modern version doesn't seem quite so exciting. Now, in the original picture, we've got this tower, and in my picture, it looks like a tower, but it's actually the back of a street sign. It has the same effect in the picture there. And there we have it, my view of Newport. The road is much more cluttered, I would say too cluttered, with street signs and hoardings. And it's sad to see premises to let. I've taken my picture in the same place that the Frith photographer was. So it's looking down the main street. We don't see here the old town hall, pity, but there we are. We certainly don't see the horse-drawn tram. But we do see a sort of version, well, of modern Newport. I'm travelling around the country to tell the story of Britain's first photo album, tracing the footsteps of the pioneer photographer Francis Frith and his team. My next stop is in the heart of the magnificent Forest of Dean, often described as the Queen of Forests. It's one of the most ancient woodlands in Britain, once a royal hunting ground. It's still a crown forest, known for its quality oak, its charcoal production, and its iron and ochre mines. This is the Frith photograph, almost exactly the same, and you can see the coach here turning up to what was a hotel and is still a hotel. But it's not just any hotel, no, it's called, and you can see it above there, the Speech House. Inside the hotel is one of the oldest and strangest courts in the country. The Speech House is home to the court, which still to this day regulates the use of livestock, the forest and the mining industry. It does so on behalf of the inhabitants of the Forest of Dean. The court is held at the Speech House at least 4 times a year. Bob and Morris are 2 of the elected judges of the Forest Court, or verdurers as they're known. They govern the business of the forest, but don't have the awesome power of verdurers in the past. If someone stole a sheep from the Forest of Dean, what would happen to them?
Oh, yes, and they could be hung.
Hung?
For stealing, yes.
And the court could decide that?
Yes, yes.
Well, that's tough, isn't it?
I should say so.
I'm glad we don't have that anymore. I've got to be careful. It's a lovely forest, isn't it?
Oh, smash it.
I mean, it couldn't be nicer. So what are you doing now? You're trying to help the forest all the time.
In every way possible.
That's your duty.
Of course it is.
And one other man who became a byword for duty was the great Admiral Nelson, who took a particular interest in the Forest of Dean. The oaks here were reputed to be the best in the world for shipbuilding. Nelson was shocked to see how much of the forest had been cut down, and he ordered thousands of oak saplings to be planted. This could be just the sort of tree that Nelson wanted planted in the Forest of Dean.
Perfect for that, yes.
Now, why did he want to do that? Why did he care so much?
Well, he couldn't get the quality of oak anywhere else in the United Kingdom that he can get here in the Forest of Dean. And he was extremely keen when he came here in the very, very late 1700s to find that almost all the timber had gone, mainly for smelting the iron ore. So he then got an act of Parliament passed to replant the forest. Hence the reason we have these nice oaks.
But that's amazing. We are looking at a bit of living history, aren't we?
Very much so.
Yeah. Well, it's a wonderful place to keep, preserve, and make sure that it's all right. The Speech House settles cases involving all sorts of local people. One important group are the free miners. Jonathan Wright is proud to be among them. His family have for generations been granted permission to remove ochre from the caves that lie deep beneath the forest. Hello, Jonathan.
Yeah.
You're going to teach me all about ochre mining.
Yeah, I'll show you what we produce. Yeah, we get lots of different colours, red, yellow, purple and brown powders that are used for making paints.
And so how far does this go back in history?
Well, I'm the sort of tail end of 4,500 years at least of mining here.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a good tradition to continue doing.
So if you see cave paintings, ancient cave paintings, the chances are, if there are any colours, they'll be this.
That's what they are.
Right, and you're going to show me the mine, yes?
Yeah, I'll be pleased to show you.
You're a free miner, aren't you?
I am, yeah. Yeah, I've been a free miner since I was 21. And it's just a family tradition, really.
What are the qualifications?
You have to be a male, you have to be over 21, and you have to work a year and a day in a mine in the Forest of Dean, and you have to be born here.
Right. But once you become a free miner, you are allowed to mine here, that's it?
You're allowed to mine anywhere in the Forest of Dean except under churchyards, yeah, and graveyards.
And do you meet, do you gather?
Yeah, every year we meet at the Speech House, as we have done for over 300 years.
Oh, right. Well, this is something, isn't it?
It's a natural cave made by water. There was an underground river running through here. You can imagine it just full of water rushing through. It must have been spectacular, really.
This is a magnificent cave.
Yeah, there's hundreds like this. They're massive.
Covering a large area?
600 acres.
As we go deeper into the mine, I wonder what the reality of life would have been like for miners in the past.
If you look here, we've got what they would have used. This is known as a nelly, and it's a ball of clay with a stick in the side and a candle stuck in, and they held it in their mouth, just like that, like a pipe.
And can we light that?
Yeah, sure, yeah. I've got a lighter, and you can see the difference, really.
Shall I hold that? You can... Right, let's get it going. Right.
So that's your light.
OK, can you put it in your mouth? Do you mind putting it in your mouth? All right, so you now, well, you're a miner, but I can't talk to you because you've got your light. So you wouldn't have this light or just have that? You're going to teach me a bit about how to mine ochre, right?
Yeah.
What do I have to do?
We've got a good seam of iron ore and ochre there, just collecting the ochre. Yeah.
So I've got some then anyway. So just scrape it off like that?
Yeah.
Onto the tray?
Yeah, and just collect it up.
Right.
It's very satisfying, though, because you often work next to pickaxe marks that are hundreds of years old.
Oh, like these?
Yeah. Some of these are Victorian.
When would the miner know when to pack it in?
By the number of candles they burnt.
Really?
Each candle they had would last about an hour.
Yeah.
So they'd bring down 10 candles. Halfway through was lunchtime, and the last one was time to go home.
Right, I think we've done our 10, haven't we? Yeah. I think we've done our probably 10 candles. Okay.
Jonathan's solitary working life underground wouldn't suit most of us, but he clearly enjoys it, and I hope my photo, like Frith's of the Speech House, will celebrate an ancient tradition which still goes on deep in the Forest of Dean.
So if you could be just a bit further over. Right, I think that's OK. Whoops, that's fine. My photograph is of a free miner. Now, they don't appear in the Frith photograph, but they do meet at the Speech House. So there's a Frith photograph, quite different but relevant, is my picture of a free miner, Jonathan, who I must say I did like rather a lot. And this is him proudly mining in a family tradition that goes back hundreds of years. A strange sensation going to that mine, and I think we've got some of that strangeness and some of the excitement in that picture.
For my final stop on the Frith Trail today, I'm leaving the Forest of Dean and heading to the city of Gloucester. This would have been a busy, bustling place in Frith's time. It was Britain's most inland port, and like many towns in the 19th century, benefited hugely from the arrival of the railway.
I'm looking forward to Gloucester. I first went there ages ago. I was in a school choir, I was a treble, and we sang in Gloucester Cathedral. I can't remember the date. Must have been soon after that Frith photograph.
Looking at this Frith picture, it's not obvious why it was taken. There's a group of old cottages and what appears to be a pub, but they don't seem very special. Local journalist Hugh Worsnip clears up the mystery.
Hello, Hugh.
Hello.
You're going to tell me that this is here, isn't it? Because it's got to be here.
This is the place.
This is the Coach and Horses?
It's still the Coach and Horses.
But this is clearly not this building here.
Indeed. This is one of 4 original Sunday schools, which eventually evolved into both a national and an international movement. By 1880, 7.5 million children in Britain alone received their only education in Sunday school. The movement was inspired by Robert Raikes, the editor of the local paper, who famously was appalled at the behaviour of the children on a Sunday, which was their only day off from working in the pin factories. And he and Thomas Stock, the vicar of the parish, drew up a list of the 90 poorest and most neglected children, specifically to go to the 4 Sunday schools that he set up.
Right, so they worked all week, they worked in the pin factories.
6 days a week they worked in the pin factories from 7 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night, and Sunday was the day they let off steam.
How old were the children?
The children ranged from 7 to 14, boys and girls.
Right, so we're going to go...
The Sunday school movement went from strength to strength as word of Raikes's work spread. This Gloucestershire newspaper man became one of the world's great educational pioneers. His Sunday school movement was a catalyst for the creation of the state school system we know today. This was the start of something big.
Across the road is the house where Raikes lived for 37 years and was his printing office.
Right, so how many houses did he have?
He had 5 altogether, and 3 of them are still with us.
Right, so he was sort of a media magnet. of Gloucester. Now that's a nice picture of him. He looks benign.
Well, he may look benign, but he wasn't above wielding the stick himself in the schools when he was doing one of his inspections. On one celebrated occasion, he put a child's hand on a hot stove because he said that liars were worse than thieves.
Oh, well, that is true today, isn't it? You, as journalists, we know that.
We know that.
Yes, we know that.
Outside Rakes' house, I found the head teacher of a local school, the Robert Rakes Centre, who was here to tell a few of her pupils about the school's founding father. Rakes once famously tied down a child to stop him from running away, and I can see this method could come in handy.
OK, all right. How old are you?
8.
How old are you?
6.
You don't know how old you are?
6.
You're 6, right? But if you were 8, he'd be just about the right age, wouldn't he, for Rakes' school?
He would, yeah. Sunday school.
Right, and are they difficult? Are they hard to discipline, these children?
I'm 6, and he's 6, and he's...
All right, and are they easy to discipline or are they difficult?
Sometimes easy.
Sometimes, but a lot of the time difficult. What was he famous for?
What did he do? What was it that he did? I know, I'm good now.
What? You don't know what he did? What did he know? Did he know a lot about children?
That's right, Casey.
Yeah? And would you like to go to Sunday school?
No, not really.
When you look back on what he did, getting these children, getting them organised,
Yeah.
it was quite a strict discipline there, wasn't it?
It was very, yeah, a lot different to what it is today.
And are we better today, or are we too soft?
No, I think we're better today, more positive about behaviours than negative.
Yeah.
Focus on the positive.
But you still think of him as a great man?
Yes, I do, because he did a lot of great things for children that weren't able to access education.
So Rakes, hero.
Absolutely.
Rakes realised that to get on in life, we need to learn. And in my case, that's what I'm still doing, with photography.
I like the way that the lines of the picture are all going that way. So it's sort of, I don't know, it's give it a bit of depth, a bit of perspective, that's what we're told to do, and makes it look a bit classier than the ordinary snap.
Rakes' house looks pretty striking against the blue sky, and although it's now a pub, the outside at least hasn't changed much since Frith's time.
This is Robert Rakes' home, and you might think it's odd that his home should have been turned into a pub, but just think of the journalists who would like to see that happen to their home. Because he wasn't a killjoy, he was very much, well, I suppose you'd call him a modern campaigning journalist. He not only took the views of his readers very carefully, but he also wanted to improve their lot.
If you want to find out more about Britain's first photo album, go to bbc.co.uk, photo album. Next time, I'll be following in Frith's footsteps, visiting Liverpool to find out about a photographic club that the great man himself founded over a century ago. I'll head to Blackpool to climb the tower, and I'll find out how the Victorians gave life to the seaside holiday.
Are you certain, though, David, that this is not frightening, all right?